Hi, I'm Rianne Stowell. I'm a research assistant professor in the Department of Neuroscience at the University of Rochester Medical Center in Rochester, New York. My dissertation focused on microglial roles in the adolescent visual system, specifically how noradrenergic signaling altered both microglial dynamics as well as critical period plasticity. And now my work still focuses on microglia, but instead in the adolescent frontal cortex, looking at how microglia affect the rewiring and plasticity of dopamine circuits. And all of this is in mice, no people involved. Accomplishments that I'm proud of in my career, I would have to say I'm very happy with my publications from my graduate work. So my main project on noradrenergic signaling and microglia was published in Nature Neuroscience, and it's been cited over 300 times since 2019 when it was published. So it's always good to know that you've had a fairly large impact on your field. I also, my first author paper was on microglia in the cerebellum, and I was the first one to image their unique dynamics in the cerebellum, which has also been pretty well cited. So it's exciting to have these kinds of discoveries that ultimately do have an impact on the field. And I'd also say I'm proud of my history of successfully getting funding. I had a fellowship as a graduate student, as a postdoc, and now recently I will be receiving a K Award, which is a transition from my current role as working in someone's lab to hopefully having my own lab at some point soon. So I'd say one of my bigger challenges during graduate school was getting my F31. The F31 is one of the main fellowship mechanisms you can apply for as a graduate student in the biological sciences, and it's funded through the NIH. So ultimately I did in the end get it. So it was trials, which I persevered, but the normal application cycle for an F31 is typically you send it in once, and most people do not get funded on their first try. You'll hopefully get your application discussed by your review panel, and if it's in the upper percentile of applications that they ranked through their numerical scoring, you'll get some detailed information on what reviewers liked and disliked about your application. And then with that, you can take that and respond in a page at the beginning of your resubmission application, send it back in. So I went through that whole process and was very optimistic because my initial score was pretty good, but wasn't at the funding line. So I knew I was revising, but thought I had a good shot at getting it on the second try. And unfortunately, at least one of the reviewers in my review panel really hated one specific facet of my experimental design, which I don't remember the detail of, but the point being that this reviewer really had an issue with it. And when you have these grants getting discussed in review panels, one person being extremely negative can really bring your score down and affect how everyone else ultimately votes to score your application. So my second try did not get funded, which was very frustrating, but I thankfully had the encouragement of my program officer, who's essentially a point person that you talk about your grants that you've sent to the NIH with. And my program officer explained the situation that was really just this one person's opinion that killed my score and that I should really send it back in. So I had to send my grant in a third time. And unfortunately, with these application cycles, you can only revise once. So you can certainly send it in essentially an infinite number of times, but you don't have the benefit of having that one page where you got to say, like, this was the problem and I fixed it with my grant. So I sent it in a third time, and it thankfully was funded on a third try, but it was definitely a very frustrating experience having to jump through so many hoops to get the fellowship in the end. So I think when you face any challenge, whether it be a grant or a paper or what have you in life or work, it's really important to just feel your feelings at the initial onset of what's happening. So I do think I initially did a good bit of moping around and copious amounts of complaining to the willing ears of people around me. And I think particularly in academia and like in grad school where you have hopefully other graduate students that you're interacting with depending on your program, it can help a lot to commiserate. So I think an initial important facet of coping is just like let yourself feel the disappointment because it's normal and makes sense to feel disappointed about it. But then from there, I like to set a cutoff point for how much kind of like wallowing I'm going to do after a frustrating situation. And then you have to look at like, what can you actually do now? What are some actionable steps that you can take? In my case, it was, even though it was frustrating, applying once again to the grant. It's not like there's anything stopping me from applying again, except my own irritation that I had to do it again. So, and I think that's something really important, particularly in academia, where you will get more rejections on papers and grants than you will get successes, that you have to learn to roll with it and keep trying, because the time when you truly fail is when you stop trying. And I think the other thing that's really helped me cope with this and other disappointments throughout my career is that these accomplishments or things I'm trying to do in academia aren't the whole story of my life. I have many other things and interests outside of science. So I think it's important not to hang your self-worth or like the importance of everything on this one failure or on, a singular success, that you have to look at your life holistically in these situations and take a step back. From this experience of applying for the F-31, I, on a technical scale, really learned how to apply for a grant. And I think that is really valuable experience. But from the failure of having to put it back in and try again, I think it gave me very early on in my graduate career an understanding of the importance of perseverance, because it did ultimately work out. And it showed me that, giving up is not really an option, and that it's worth it to keep trying, and that as you're going along through your academic journey, all of these failures ultimately are learning experiences, as annoying as that may be to just see them as that. In the end, putting them in context, it's important for your training. And whenever you're putting something out there for someone to review, you have to remember that reviewers are people too, and it's a couple people's opinion on a given day. So it also, taught me to contextualize the fact that these reviewers that unfortunately have my fate in their hands are people. And that, it's not the end of the world if these people disagree with what I wrote. And I just have to find a way to succeed or appease them in my revision process when I'm working on my grants or papers or what have you. So advice that I feel like I probably got a good bit of from my fellow grad students when I was a grad student, those that were further ahead of me, as well as from advisors, is that grad school is hard and challenges are normal, and you should expect them. Particularly, I'd say in biological sciences, experiments will fail. You will have at least one experiment, I can guarantee, which will fail. And what you have to learn is how to keep going, and also that your failures are not you. You are more than your work, and your self-worth should not be hung on whether or not the stain works or your images come out exactly how you're hoping. Ultimately, in grad school, you are learning how to ask better questions and think critically about topics. And so, try and enjoy the training experience. And something else that I think really ties into that and is important is to really think about when you're starting grad school and when you're identifying, in case of like the harder sciences, a lab, that you pick a culture and a climate for work that matches with your own needs and mentorship. I think the most important thing is identifying a really strong mentor to support your research aims as you go through graduate school, and finding a mentoring style that works for you, whether you want someone who's more involved or less involved, and keeping in mind that, like, with a good mentor, you can get excited about a lot of different projects, but a bad mentor can ruin the thing that you are most excited about in the whole world. So I think it's important to build that a support network from your mentor to your fellow graduate students, because it is a challenging time, but the important thing is to keep going and also find things outside of grad school that bring you joy, because everything is not grad school. Like grad school is just a part of your life and a stage that you will pass through successfully on your way to hopefully better things. Thanks for watching Failsafe Science. My name is Rianne Stowell, and I hope you keep going. Grad school is hard, but you can do it.